Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Good morning. Welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm Marlene Cuellar.
And I'm Isana Cayetano.
And thank you for joining us this morning.
It is the 10th of May.
That's right.
Some would say it's Mother's Day. Others would say it was celebrated yesterday.
This yearly debate that we do have on what day is Mother's Day.
I know that, a lot of special events happened yesterday in celebration of Mother's Day. And, it was quite an eventful weekend.
Of course. And, if you reflect to what we had last year it was really a tough time. We were just coming out of our lockdowns and the measures were still very strict. You could only be with people from your household. And I think the numbers back then for gathering were about 10.
Yeah.
So a lot of people didn't get to celebrate Mother's Day with their mom. Or with the rest of their families. And so this year, it really feels great to be able to have the opportunity to come together and really celebrate. Did you have a good Mother's Day?
Yeah, fairly good. I'm not complaining. It's interesting though, Marlene, because as you mentioned, last year around this time, we were in fact coming out of an extended period of lockdown, right? And so when you look at that against this weekend, for instance, and the fact that people are out and about, if you look at the establishments, and with the new SI that came out on Friday, 75% of the capacity of restaurants are now, is now accepted. So you see more and more people all over Belize City. Well, I didn't go out district, but speaking for Belize City, quite a number of people are out and about.
Yeah, and we've been seeing it for quite some time. I think since the extension of the curfew around Easter, we saw that people are making use of that weekend time, getting out, going to restaurants and hanging out. It's great for businesses. Of course, we do keep reminding everyone every time we talk about this that we are still expected to maintain all the safety protocols. Wear your mask, watch your distance, and of course, keep on washing those hands. Still, but the COVID numbers have been promising. That's the shining light here.
In terms of going down, yes.
Yeah.
I was noticing that on Friday with the last figures that were released by the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and I noticed that it's going down considerably. There were 15 recovered cases versus the number of cases that were positive or what have you. So,
yeah, the big push now is looking at vaccinations, and I think since I think the start of this month, we've seen the second round of vaccinations get started, and that means now that we have people who are fully protected based on the 2 doses that they have received of the AstraZeneca, and so elderly persons are allowed to go back for that second round of their vaccine. I know I've heard some people who had side effects from the first one saying they're not going back for the second. It is absolutely important that you do. You're not fully protected until you have both doses of the vaccination. So even if the side effects were uncomfortable, if they knocked you out for a day, keep in mind that this is to protect you from severe COVID, which would be far worse than the 1 day of symptoms that you had.
Well said.
Yeah. All right, but we got to get moving into our show for today, which means it's time for some motivation to get us started. That means it's time for our eye opener. And our eye opener, taken from dailyom.com, goes like this. When we hold space for someone, we offer to be a container for the overwhelming feelings they may be encountering. We have all been called upon at one time or another to help a loved one through a difficult time. When the help requires consists of concrete actions, such as running errands or making phone calls, we know what to do. But sometimes we are called to hold space for the person as they go through their journey. They may need to express anger or grief. They may need to talk or simply be silent. They may need us to hold their hand. They may need us to give them time alone. Whatever the case, when we hold space for someone, we offer ourselves to be a container for the overwhelming feelings they may be encountering due to their circumstances. We can provide this offering in person, over the phone, or even from a distance through meditation. However we do it, when we hold space for someone in need, we're offering a gift of the highest nature.
I equate, or I put together holding space more as being there to be able to provide moral support or emotional support for someone who may be going through a difficult time. Yeah. Or being there when someone is celebrating an achievement, to be able to share that with them, right? So that's my understanding of holding space. Yeah. That's how I look at it. Now, to the eye-opener, it can also mean being able to give a listening ear to someone who wants to vent, or someone who wants to express anger or grief or whatever emotion they're going through or dealing with. Mm-hmm. And so that is also a form of holding space. And you'd be surprised, Marlene, that many times people just require you to listen. You know, they're not asking you to provide a solution to their issues or what have you. But the idea that, you know, you can get a call or someone comes to visit you and they're sharing with you what they're going through. Now, there's a difference between simply dumping or attempting to unload all your emotions on someone. That can be overwhelming. Mm-hmm. But when they approach you and ask you to just hear them out, mm-hmm. you know, that form of holding space, based on what the eye-opener is saying, is actually one of the highest gifts of nature. Just be quiet and allow the person to share with you what they're going through. And at the end of the day, you feel satisfied that you are there, and that person also feels satisfied that they were at least able to share that feeling with someone, as opposed to keeping it pent up.
It's also one of the hardest things to do, you know, and I think that that's one of the things that we can struggle with sometimes, especially depending on how close the relationship is. You may be naturally protective and want to jump in and save the person or do something to help solve whatever they're going through, or sometimes there's literally nothing you can do because the pain that they experience is not something that can be resolved. And you may want to lighten up the situation and make jokes because you think that will help. It is so hard to be able sometimes, you know, helping people out with errands, cooking for them, you know, if it's giving something in kind, financially, if you can contribute. These are things that are absolutely helpful and supportive to people. But when people just need your ear and nothing else, it really takes a lot of self-control and self-awareness to be able to decipher that someone just needs to release the emotions, the overwhelming emotions that they have. And you're right. It's one of the best gifts you can offer somebody. Because if you've ever been in that space and you have, and you know, I'm blessed, I have people that I can call with things like that, and you let it all out, it's like a release that you can then refocus and then go back to what you need to do. And so, like I said, I think when I read it, you know, the eye-opener really kind of gets into the meat of the matter, which is being able to be a listening ear, being able to hold space, as it calls it, being able to be supportive sometimes means you just listen.
Yeah, there we go.
Very tough for men especially, huh? Who are...
Well, I'll be honest with you, you know, in the relationship dynamic, as men, we're called upon to simply listen at times.
Yeah.
And at times, we also expect that our partner or spouse would also just listen. But when the situation involves two people and you're kind of going through that back and forth, then listening gets lost in translation, right?
All right, but that is the eye-opener for today. We do hope that it's one to really help you get your week started and put things into perspective. And with that, we're going to get moving into our weather update for today. And we got Ronald Gordon on the line. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Marlene.
How are you today?
I'm doing okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
So, definitely wasn't a scorching weekend as we have seen in the past. Tell us what's the update for today.
It's going to continue mainly fair, a bit warm. We don't expect significant rainfall. You can get a brief isolated shower here or there today. And then tonight, the possibility of a few more showers affecting the southern districts of the country.
Okay. And the winds?
Winds are out of the east and southeast at 10 to 20 knots with higher gusts, and the sea conditions moderate to rough. We have a small craft caution in effect.
All right. And the temperatures, while they're not low, they're lower than we were seeing last week.
Yeah, they're a bit lower this week. We're looking at the high 80s, 88 along the coast for today, and the mid-90s, approximately 95 over inland areas. And if you're up in the hills, it's going to be about 82 degrees Fahrenheit for you.
Okay. And for tonight?
It will go down to about 82 along coastal areas, 76 inland, and 68 up in the mountain, Pine Ridge.
All right. And what's the rest of the week looking like?
Okay, we expect similar conditions on tomorrow, which is Tuesday, and we're going to see a gradual increase in moisture as the week progresses. So by Thursday night into Friday, we're going to see a few showers and thunderstorms affecting the country.
Okay. Oh, we got more showers coming at the end of the week?
That's right. That's what the models are showing us at the moment.
Okay. All right. And the other updates or fire updates and sargassum?
Yeah, in terms of fires, we are still in the fire season, and conditions are still conducive for brush and forest fires to affect the country. We expect that to continue at least for the next 24 to 40 hours, and as I indicated, it's going to be a bit moist, a bit more moist toward the end of the week, and so the fire risk will decrease at that time. In terms of sargassum, the latest imagery, satellite imagery, still show an abundance of sargassum offshore, and those could drift ashore and affect beaches across the country. So that's another thing to look out for now.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for that update.
Sure. You have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right.
So some showers towards the end of the week.
Yeah, and so now just hot.
Yeah.
Well, I should say warm because it's not upper 90s as yet. All right, we want to thank the Met Service for that update for today. And with that done, it's time for us to get talking about what are the big stories coming out from last week and what we're looking forward to in the week ahead. So let's shift gears to Eye on the News.
So Marlene, we're on the heels of what can be described as a violent weekend across the country, beginning with what transpired in Belize City over the past 3 days. We know that on Thursday night, there was a gangland execution in Belize City, and so there were concerns that there may have been, or there could have been, reprisals as a result of that particular incident on Baghdad Street, where the life of 17-year-old Gerald Tillett Jr. was taken in such callous manner. Over the weekend, there was an incident that can only be described as horrific in terms of what took place. Now, this particular incident involved 3 individuals who were downstairs of a residence on Glen Street, which is in the general vicinity of where the Thursday night murder took place. This would be on the other side of Cemetery Road, right? In the area of Euphrates Avenue. So these three individuals, these are all men who are in their 50s, early 50s, as their ages indicate. They were socializing, and a motorcycle carrying two individuals appeared on the scene, and a barrage of gunfire erupted, leaving one person dead on the scene and two others who were rushed by police and by civilians in the area to the hospital. Now, one of the persons who was rushed to the hospital unfortunately lost his life as well. So we're looking at an incident that has turned out to be a double murder, a double homicide. And it is for the police department to be able to make any connections as to whether, in fact, this was an act of retaliation based on what happened 2 days prior, right? But that's only in Belize City, right? There are also incidents of murder that were reported in other parts of the country, including a stabbing incident in Stan Creek district. There's also one that we're looking at very carefully because it too can be described as extremely harrowing, where a mother and a child lost their lives in a house fire. Now, the circumstances of what took place there, police are still investigating, but it is believed that the fire was deliberately set by a member of the family, right? And if that were the case, then you're looking at arson and you're looking at homicide as well. But it's just to highlight the fact that, you know, notwithstanding everything that we're going through as a country, we're still grappling with crime and violence. And while the department may say that, you know what, perhaps the numbers are considerably lower this time around when compared to other years, the problem does not necessarily go away. It remains a social issue. So that's the first thing that I wanted to put there, Marlene, as something that we're following carefully, because we as reporters will be seeking answers from the police department this morning to get an understanding of what is being done to investigate, or what is being done in this case perhaps to stem any further reprisals if in fact the first story that I shared with you is a gang-related or gang-motivated incident.
Yeah. It's tough to even think where to comment based on what happened over the weekend. There were multiple murders and very callous incidents as well. I guess starting with the one that, you know, really has been the most painful story we've seen over the weekend, that's the mother and child who died in the fire. And I should actually say that we don't know the circumstances. They were found, the bodies were found after the fire had been put out. What was their status before the fire, whether they died in the fire. These are things that are yet to be identified. But 36-year-old Kendra Middleton and 3-year-old Aiden Perez lost their lives on Friday night, and the fact that the police has already indicated that it is most likely arson. They're suspecting that it's arson, and that they have detained what preliminary reports are saying are the ex-common law of the family. Is just, it's a heartbreaking situation, and I can't imagine what that family must be going through, her loved ones. Losing a baby boy at 3, losing their daughter, the sister, and it is a very serious situation when you think of any person, whether intentionally causing people to die, especially in this manner. So this has been a story that we are hoping to get more answers for by the end of today in our newscast. And like I said, you don't know where to start, because then you know, here in Belize City, you have what seems like a random execution of 3 men who, based on what has been described so far, were just kind of hanging out in their yard in their mid-50s. We don't know what involvement or what motive is behind it, but kind of just randomly having their evening session and being executed.
Yeah. So that's the first story the first aspect of this segment that we're looking at. The other is the grim financial situation that the country is in. I'm saying this in the context of what we learned last week regarding the super bond situation and the fact that there is a payment that's pending for the month of May.
Yeah.
And while we are yet to get official word from the Prime Minister in terms of, speaking to this particular issue, we do know that the meeting that was set between the Minister of State in the Ministry of Finance with the bondholders had been called off. And out of that comes a requirement, if I may, that for any restructuring to take place, Belize has to subscribe to an IMF program. And I can recall having interviewed the Prime Minister several months back to discuss with him the situation of Belize's economic state of affairs and whether or not at that time the IMF prescriptions would have been something that the government would consider. And at the time, and the PM has since maintained the position that the homegrown economic recovery plan is what the government is going with, as opposed to the recommendations or the programs that the IMF would be offering. Now, when you look at that versus the demand being made by the bondholders, a decision has to be made in terms of being able to satisfy both positions, if I may. If we were to restructure, we need to subscribe to an IMF program. If we are to look at the overall economic recovery, then the government has stated that it wants to be able to, put forward its own plan of action. And it's an interesting state of affairs because the overarching thing is that the economy is in a bad state. We're in pretty bad shape at this point.
Yeah, no, this is absolutely a critical time that we are in, and I don't think we should take it lightly what is taking place in terms of the restructuring of the super bond. This is essentially debt that we have been trying to move forward with for some time. And you're going back to the table each time asking for a restructure. Let's renegotiate essentially. You've missed a couple payments, or you say you delay a couple payments, and now the bondholders are coming back. They can't really demand, but they can request that Belize subscribe to an IMF program. And what that really signals several things. It's the trust that they have in the country being able to get ourselves out of this dire financial straits, and perhaps even the frustration of having to have these renegotiations or this restructuring taking place multiple times. So it is a key situation to pay attention to, and we're hoping that we'll hear from government representatives as to how they move forward. This is, a part of the economic recovery plan for the country, in addition to what we've been talking about mostly, which is looking at reducing the expenses, and that includes wage cuts and reducing goods and services. But another key portion is getting a handle on the debt, because we have a massive amount of debt. And so, when you're talking about the recovery of the economy, this is a key portion as to how we're going to move forward. When that bond payment comes due, I think in a few weeks, in less than 2 weeks, what are we going to do as a country? Are we just not going to pay? Are we going to be able to work out a solution before then? And what type of solution will the bondholders and government be able to hammer out?
And the truth of the matter is, Marlene, we haven't really had much of an opportunity of late to be able to, put forward these questions to the Prime Minister. And while we expect that he will, face the nation and let us know exactly where we stand in respect of this particular issue, we would also want to be able to field certain questions so that we get answers in terms of what's next. How are we going to approach, the issue of the super bond going forward? So that's just one of those things where we're kind of eager to find out, okay, where do we go from here, and what is the plan of action that government has now in light of the position taken by the bondholders. So that's the other thing.
Well, it's for me, you know, when I put it into perspective, I see one thing. Let's look at what our government under the Briceño administration is facing at this time. They need to work out an agreement with the unions who are, in fact, I believe the teachers are moving into day 11 of their strike, which officially makes it, if they go beyond today, the longest strike they've had since 2016. So you still have there were over 1,000 people who came out, union members who came out on Friday. It was a massive showing. And so they are on one end, they have representatives trying to negotiate a way forward or work out a way forward or consult a way forward. They seem to want to play around with these words. In other words, there needs to be a solution here.
Yeah.
So there's that happening on one end. And then on the other end, there's also looking at restructuring the debt and ensuring that we are paying our obligations in what we can afford, and especially over the next, well, I won't even say a few years, but for the future. So you have two stalemates at this moment, and a government that is less than a year in office. It is definitely not an easy time for them, and both of these solutions are critical for the country and the economy to move forward.
Well, as we say, right, they wanted the job of leading the country. Overwhelmingly, they received the mandate to lead the country. And it's no joke. These are turbulent times in terms of what we're expecting and what we're facing and what we know is taking place in the pandemic, the resulting economic situation, and the fact that, like you said, the teachers and the public officers are on strike because of their own need for maintaining their 10% as opposed to, you know, the wage cut. So it's a very, very difficult time all around, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the days ahead, right? So I'm glad you segued from the super bond situation to the union situation, because that would have been the third aspect here. We know that they're going to meet once again on Thursday. There's been a resumption of discussions between the unions and the government. The government seems to be moving expeditiously to satisfy some of the demands being made by the unions, notwithstanding the 10% situation. And we're talking about the other measures, UNCAC and all these other things that the unions are clamoring for to be put in place. So that's the other part of what we're discussing here this morning, Marlene.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we don't have to go too in-depth with it because we are going to be joined by the joint unions negotiating team in our conversation for the show today. So we'll be able to get more clarity. But in terms of news that we're looking at for today, for the rest of this week, this is definitely a big one on the list.
Certainly. So that brings us to the end of the Eye on the News segment this morning. Remember that these stories and more you can catch at 6 o'clock on News 5 Live, and we are streaming our content as well on YouTube and Facebook. So that does it for the Eye on the News this morning.
All right, and with that, we're going to get moving into our show. As I just mentioned, we are going to be joined by the presidents of the Belize National Teachers Union, the Public Service Union, and the Association of Public Service Senior Managers. They're going to be talking to us about the ongoing strike that these entities are engaged in, the conversations and consultations that they have had with government representatives, and what happens from here. That's going to be the primary focus as we do a two-part conversation with them.
And so our third segment will be an observance of Europe Day 2021. And that being said, we'll have a discussion on the state of the EU-Belize cooperation. So that will be our third segment this morning.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take our break, but before we do, we have our birthday shout out.
We are saying happy birthday to Sandra Perez.
All right, Sandra.
Sandra, there she is.
Have a great day. That comes from all of us here at Channel 5 and Open Your Eyes. We're going to take a break now, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about the ongoing strike, and we'll be joined by union representatives. Please stay tuned.
Smart continues to expand its internet coverage countrywide to help you live a smarter life.
Our villagers are very happy. They are pleased to know that Smart went the extra mile to put a tower in our village so that our villagers can get live streams on their TVs and they can get their kids doing their online classes. I want to say to Smart, thank you for making it possible for us to get internet in Gardenia Village. We really do appreciate it.
Smart continues to take the internet and mobile services to communities across Belize. Now save even more when you bundle your Smart broadband with Smart mobile services. Smart, bringing people together.
As one of the largest cable and internet providers in Belize, CBC strives to provide our customers with the highest standards of quality, value, and service in all aspects of cable TV and internet. Monitoring our systems closely, our technicians combine creative planning and state-of-the-art technology with years of experience and training to develop and provide the most reliable and advanced cable and internet service to exceed your expectations. For CBC and our team of talented engineers, technicians, and customer service representatives, delivering less than the very best is never an option.
In these challenging times, the one thing that is certain is that the Belize Bank Limited is here for you. There is nothing more important than your health and safety, and we continue to make every effort to make banking safer for you. Our staff is working around the clock to make sure you can do your banking conveniently 24/7 using our mobile banking app and online banking and keeping ATMs up and running. We value your relationship with us and are here to provide the support you need. First responders are also out there 24/7. Thank you, healthcare workers, security forces, firefighters, caregivers. You are all appreciated. Stay safe. We will get through this together. The Belize Bank, our country, your bank.
Hi, I am Rosanna Briseño. I am happy to see that the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine has begun all over our nation. If we are to get back to some kind of normalcy, if our golden citizens will be better protected, and if our children are to go back to school, then we need to get vaccinated. I believe in the COVID-19 vaccine, and when my turn comes around, I will get vaccinated. I urge you to take it too. #GetVaccinated_Belize.
It is my time
to protect your life.
Don't wait to vaccinate.
I believe in the COVID-19 vaccine.
The vaccine is the best way to protect lives.
Don't wait, vaccinate.
Don't hesitate, Belize.
Vaccinate. Be COVID-19 safe. If you care,
love them.
Protect them.
Vaccinate them.
Do you need to apply for a Social Security card? With our newest online service, My Social Security, applying for a card just got easier. With a My Social Security account, you can apply for a card anytime and anywhere, putting you in control. To use this service, you must first create your My Social Security account. Visit our website. Under Online Services, select My Social Security, provide your personal information, and await activation of your new account. After activation, you are free to log in to your My Social Security account to complete your online application for a Social Security card. Be sure to book your registration appointment to finish the card application process. Gain control and truly experience Social Security at your fingertips.
Why, Tony?
Boy, Keith, where you going, man?
I actually come see you because I need to buy a stack of them plastic plates and cups for my grocery shop because I run low.
Boy, I stopped importing that thing since April 15th, you know. And I just routed the last batch, must be about like 3 weeks back, you know.
Man, do I usually have anything? Where you going?
Check this, right? Under the new law, we ban all single-use plastics, so that the cups, plates, forks, spoons, and knives, all of that. Since April 15th, can't import none of them. Starting January 15, 2021, you can't manufacture them. April 15, 2021, you can't sell them. And after July 14, 2021, if you get catch with any other thing, you will get fined.
Me never know this. I guess I have to make some changes then. I have to make the customers know that anything not available. Anyways, bro. Thanks, man.
No problem, man. Take care.
Today's COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
And welcome back. We begin our first conversation this morning, which is a two-part discussion with the joint union negotiating team. That being said, we have with us the president of the Belize National Teachers Union, Elena Smith. We also have with us the president of the Public Service Union, Gerald Henry, and the president of the Association of Public Service Senior Managers, Chief Magistrate Sharon Fraser. Good morning, folks. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Miss Annie. Morning, Marlene.
Let's begin by getting from you guys an update from the most recent meeting that was held with the government in respect of the demands that are being put forward by the joint unions.
Well, as you know, we met, and that is because ultimately we had reached an impasse, and we had actually left the ball in the court of the government, and in fact, they did call us back to the table on Thursday. And of course, we went to see what it is they were bringing to us, what new things they were bringing to us. In the meantime, I must say that we had come up with an 11-point document that somehow got in their hands. So they spoke to us about that. But I want to say that even with all of that, the position that the joint union had was that we couldn't move past point 2 on those list of salient points that we had come up with, and the point 2 had to do with the salary cut. I know that, in fact, and maybe the public may very well know that government has in fact put that 10% salary cut in the budget already. But generally speaking, you have members who are still saying that they are not comfortable, they do not accept the 10% cut. So it was hard for us to move forward away from that point 2. So that is where we actually were stuck, if I could put it like that. Yeah. I don't know if it is that my sister or brother would want to further elaborate, but that is where we were. come Thursday. And it's kind of difficult for us to move forward from that because the general feeling is that the decision was unilateral. We had made a number of suggestions that could have been considered before reaching the court, but this is where we are. They've cut, nevertheless, with effect from the 1st of May. Yeah. So I don't know. Our position is not, while it is that our members have indicated that they cannot, my member have indicated that they cannot afford the cut, they were still prepared to say, okay, fine, we can do this, but you need to do certain things. I'm going to let Sister Elena and Brother Henry speak on that aspect.
Let me just jump in there with that one for a second, because I think that's part of the clarity that's needed at this time. The conversations over the past month, I would say, it started with no salary cuts. And then as the time drew closer with the budget and the budget debate, we started to hear, well, you know, the salary cut is already in the budget, but, or for example, with APSSM, you said you were open to the salary cut, but with certain conditions. Are we now, has the situation changed where members are now saying no to the salary cut across the board?
No, that is not what we are in fact saying, because the issue was not only about the salary cut, the issue was also about the good governance procedures. Yes. It was also about putting in place cost savings and revenue enhancement measures.
Yes.
So while it is, yes, you might very well be hearing about the salary cut, it was not only just that. Mm-hmm. That has taken some prominence because it means that you are taking away property from persons. And I know at some point in time the issue was raised, if you're taking my property, what are you going to give me for it? What am I going to get in place of that? How am I going to fill that shortcoming, that gap? Many proposals were made in relation to how it is that we could fill that gap that will exist as a result of the 10%. I've heard many stories, and I'm sure that my sister and brother president can tell their experience of stories that their members are saying they don't know what they're going to do in relation to the fact that they would have lost 10%. I know that one of my members were indicating that we are now seeing far more incidents of depression, far more incidents of anxiety attacks because they don't know what they're going to do. So we cannot ignore that aspect of it. While it is, I can, yes, confirm that all of us have been asking for good governance. So if we're going to lose things, put good governance in place so that we're not back here 3 or 5 years from now.
Yeah.
So, but there are things, and I will not sit here and tell you that the government has not moved as far as that is concerned. They have. We have gotten drafts of what would amount to Whistleblowers Act. You have gotten a draft as it relates to recovery assets and recovery, asset recovery. We've also to consider campaign financing legislation. We had given them a draft for them to look at and pass back to us. So we've moved somewhere, right?
Yeah.
As far as the good governance is concerned, the legislations are concerned.
Yes.
No, putting that forward is one thing, implementation is another thing.
Yes.
But at least we have moved on that end. There are some other issues that the government have put to us, but unfortunately we have not gone into any extensive discussion on them because as I said, we're kind of stuck at point two. You have members who are saying, I don't know how I'm going to manage with the fact that they've taken 10% from me.
Yeah.
That is their lunch money, that is their commuting money, that is their babysitting money.
Yeah.
There's so many things.
Senator Smith, let me shift this over because that's a key point that you're making there, President Fraser. President Elena, that's one of the aspects of this process that people that can really draw it out. You have the proposals on the table, but you go back to your membership, and it seems that the message coming back repeatedly from your individual branch units is that they don't want the salary cut. So how do you go back to a table with the government when they're firm on that position, but your membership, who guides your position, are also firm on their position?
Are you there, Senator Smith?
Oh, it seems that it froze for a second.
It's a difficult place to be at, because you enter these meetings and you're hoping that you have some leverage that you can work with, and to have to go into a meeting with a firm position, it tends to minimize the possibilities that you have of maybe coming to some sort of an agreement. But at the end of the day, our role is to represent what our members want. And so we have to go to that table and we have to present their position. And then if we are given other positions, we must come back to them and then share that position with them. The difficult part, Marlene, is sometimes when you bring back to the membership the government's position, you know, when you're saying, okay, we are offering you this, and you take that back to your membership to get a feel from them as to whether they would accept or not. Sometimes members take it to mean that you are forcing them to accept a position, when in fact you are only sharing with them, you know, what has been shared with you or what has been offered to you. So those areas are the most difficult ones. Of the day, we have to ensure, as Tashawn said, that when we go through these discussions, that as best as we can, our members don't come out losing too much. And that is a balance that we must create with our members and with the negotiating team.
Yeah.
All right, Senator, in terms of what your membership is saying, you've presented to them what government has shared with you as a collective body. What has been their response, either to the 10% situation or to the good governance counterpoints that are being made?
Well, in terms of the 10%, our members, for the most part, have remained firm that they cannot afford a cut, and they do not want a cut. So every time we go back to them, we get back that same position. In terms of the good governance issues, that is an area that they have always been concerned with, and their fear is that we must not go into these negotiations and just accept that the government says they will do certain things. And so for them, they are not satisfied until we have something in black and white that we can hold them to. So going back and say, okay, we have gotten the first job, we have gotten, you know, that's okay.
Yeah, we're having a bit of a break in transmission there. Let's get...
They applied those steps things in black and white.
Yeah.
And that is what we have to, you know, we have said to them that at the end of the discussions, that is the expectation, that we will have these in black and white to be able to share with them. And hopefully when that time comes, they will be okay with that.
Let me ask you a question here, Senator. For you guys, is it perhaps a feeling of once bitten, twice shy, considering the fact that in 2016, as a union, you went on a strike for 11 days, you wanted the UNCAC to be brought forward, implemented, and what have you, but legislating is one thing, enacting and enforcing is another. And we're looking at a situation now where there's draft legislation being presented to you guys, and perhaps at some point this will come into law. But enforcing it may be a totally different ballgame down the road from now, 2, 3 years, perhaps 4, 5 years from now. Do you feel as if though you're back at the same place you were in 2016?
For some, that has been the fear, the concern, and maybe even the lack of trust in the process because, of that previous process. And when you get to that point, it's a bit more difficult to be able to convince, if you will, that listen, we have reached a further point now, and so let's work this process and see, how best this goes. But at the end of the day, as we keep saying to them, we have to ensure that we continue to monitor the progress of these legislations. It's not just about fighting to get them legislated, but it's what happens after that. And we play a critical role in monitoring and ensure that we hold government accountable to implement these, these legislations. So that is where we are, and we understand now that we have to be a bit more vigilant going forward. Once these are passed, we have to be more vigilant to ensure that, yes, they have been passed, but they must be implemented properly. And so that is the area now that we as unions, the entire group of unions must focus on what happens after this has been passed. How do we monitor? How do we evaluate? How do we ensure that we do what should be done via this legislation?
I want to move on to the president at PSU, Gerald Henry, in just a bit, but I do want to make a note here, President Smith, that today makes 11 days since you initiated your strike action, which means following today, this will be the longest strike from the teachers union on record. What does that communicate for you?
I'm not sure that we were really and truly paying attention to the days. It's like, it doesn't feel like 11 days. It's been going so quickly by that you lost track of time because you're so focused on the discussions and the negotiations or consultations. But I think it simply means, Marlene, that our people are no more forceful in terms of what it is that they want, and they have said to us they will not back down until they get certain things. So they realize that if we keep pressure, we are able to make certain movements, and that is what they want. So hopefully, if it is that we can get some movements this week and we can get to some agreements, then that should be the end of it. Yeah. If we don't get those agreements that our members are satisfied with, then we'll have to see what would be their other mandate going forward.
Well, there are always concerns of losing steam when you have a protracted industrial situation such as this. Do you get from your membership that they are still very much along with the program here, that they're prepared to go the long haul?
Yes, for the most part. There have been a few who have been quite intimidated by management, by persons in higher authority, and some of them have stepped back a bit. Yeah. And this has always been the case that whenever we are on strike, sometimes
All right, so we have a break in transmission there, so let's go over to...
But for the most part...
Yeah. So President Henry, let's...
For the most part, they're still...
Yeah. Okay, so we'll shift over to President Henry while we try to work out that connection issue. President Henry, I asked President Smith about the length of the strike. The last time the public service unions came out of their offices and participated in a strike, it was back in 2005. So let's talk about what the actions of this past week means for your union.
Good morning again, Marlene.
Morning.
So Yeah, I believe that what it is indicating, hopefully, is that as I like to call it, the sleeping giant is on its way to getting out of the coma that it has been since then. And public officers are starting to understand that, the degree of power that we have as a collective body, and if we work together, what it is that we can accomplish. So hopefully, moving forward or going forward, the public officers will start to, more public officers will join the union, because now they are seeing exactly what it is that, especially the younger ones, what it is that the unions are there for. We fight on their behalf. We are out there for them, even when some of them aren't out there for themselves. And I'm hoping that, like I said, no, we'll see a significant increase in membership and also a significant increase in the participation of those who are our current members.
Yeah. So let me ask in general, whoever wants to jump in. It seems very unlikely that the government is going to back down from the wage cut. Do you believe that there is a solution forward with the membership that includes the wage cut? In other words, as leaders, do you believe there'll be a point where you can convince or get the members on board or in agreement to the fact that there will be a wage cut?
Well, the truth is, Marlene, as I indicated in the beginning, is that the wage cut is already in effect as of the 1st of May.
Yes.
Right? Which officers, members will see come the 15th of May and the ending of May. But I think, based on my experience and interaction, it would have been clearly a different sell had we started out with, okay, we're forced to do this, but this is what we will offer in compensation. We will go, I know that Brother Henry has spoken on the fact of maybe it is government could have approached the utility companies, for example, and maybe make them offer discounts. So maybe the same 10% we were losing, there could have been 10% discount. They could have approached certain merchants. This is where the Chamber of Commerce could have come in. They talk about us getting back to the table. But the question I asked is, so what are they doing to help with this process? They could have approached certain merchants as far as allowing public officers and teachers to get percent in discounts, 10, 15%, to make up for that shortfall. At the end of the day, you want to know, if I lose this amount of money, I will still be able to manage. While this is really not my original idea, I know that Brother Henry has been preaching this area that could have been looked at, so that it would have been that you lose, but I know if I go somewhere, I will be paying less. He actually had spoken about maybe going to the bus owners to offer discount on fares, so that would have cut down on the commuting costs for public officers and teachers, and therefore they wouldn't feel like their backs against the wall and they don't know how they're going to get to work or how they're going to eat.
But that's going to be tough considering the fact that gas prices continue to fluctuate.
Well, even with that, government could have decided, oh, well, maybe I need to just drop just maybe a percentage in terms of tax. You have to figure out a way. There are many ways. We actually feel that, in fact, despite the fact that Belize is facing a financial crisis, that for the most part, we are taking the blunt of trying to correct that financial crisis? What about the rest of the country? And not just that. Remember that we have families. We have persons who, I go to the famous excuses that is being used that, oh, well, there are so many persons who, in fact, are without jobs, but some of those people include our family members. So they make it seem as if it is just people out there and public officers and teachers are not affected by the loss of jobs. And that's fine. If you're not working, you don't get paid. But they fail to understand that public officers are still working, teachers are still working. And during the pandemic, we worked. I told people that the courts never shut down during the pandemic. In fact, we got more work.
Yeah.
So the situation is that we are fighting, yes, for all the good governance measures. And as Sister Elena have said, government have shown at least the initial willingness in that we've received draft documents, and we're grateful. We're doing our part, we're doing our reviews, we have set some timelines, and we will ensure to meet those timelines. But it is hard, it is very hard, it's a difficult situation to go and to sell to persons. You need to just give up that 10%, don't worry about it, and let us move on because we now have good governance. To me, it goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
You know, we won't leave the good governance issue, and we will fight until we get where we need to be with those and other things that we would have highlighted. But at the end of the day, how can you convince somebody who is not seeing the end, not seeing any light at the end of the tunnel, when it is, they would have already been living hand to mouth, and now you're taking 10% of that. So it's a difficult situation, and I know my members are aware of the issue with the bondholders and whatever, and that is why our members are not as hard and fast, but they're still saying they can't afford it.
Yeah. Let me just step in here for a moment. One of the things that happened last week, and I think you were the specific union leader that pointed it out, the joint unions want an audience with the Prime Minister. Have you put a request in with the negotiating team from the government end, or has it only been a publicly stated comment?
Marlene, I don't think that we should have to, you know, this is a national issue. This is a national issue. And who is best to come out to deal with a national issue, a crisis that we're in, than the leader of the country? I don't believe that we have to. That's just
why do you want to speak directly to the Prime Minister?
Well, the situation is that he is the Minister of Finance. Right. Let's start right there. So that in fact, he is the controller of the public purse. He is the person who I feel that, not that I'm not discrediting any of those 4 ministers who have met with us. As we've always said, our meetings have been respectful, they've been cordial, they've been understanding, that is there. But one have to understand that, yes, we have to go back to, each of us have to go back to who we are representing.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I say, and I've said, if I'm the owner of a business and there's things happening in my business, I need to make myself available to see what the persons in that business are saying and how it is that I can correct it. It's not me who said I will meet with the union people. The Prime Minister said that himself in a past interview that they had with him. He will sit down with the unions. I'm not saying I don't feel at all offended that in fact he hasn't come, I just find it strange that with everything that is going on, not once you have said, you know what, let me hear for myself. Right now, all he's getting is second-hand information. And I'm not saying at all that, in fact, the accurate message is not going to him. I am not alluding to that any at all, so I want to clear that up. What I'm simply saying, let me hear firsthand from the people who are out on the street, the people who are protesting, the people who can basically let my government fall. That is what I'm saying. That is not what we want to do. That is not in our contemplating mind at all. What we simply want to do, we want the same thing. We want to solve this matter in the best interest of all and for Belize and the citizens of Belize.
All right. Well, we got to take a very quick break here. But what I want to do when we come back and what viewers can look forward to is that we dive a bit deeper into the proposals and some that have been made some that have been made from the government end and the requests coming out from the unions as well. So we're going to dive into that when we come back. Please stay tuned.
Working off-site doesn't mean you have to be off your game. Studies have shown that simply adding a keyboard and mouse to your laptop increases productivity by 26%. Add a monitor and you'll be 35% more productive. At Fulltech Systems, we have what you need to enhance your remote work or e-learning experience. With devices such as headsets, video conferencing monitors, webcams, keyboards, mice, docking stations, all with the brands you trust. Keep connected with collaboration tools like Microsoft 365 Suite and Kaspersky and perform efficiently no matter where you are. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
Trimming the hedges and overgrown trees, packing food supplies, ensuring that you have medical supplies and important documents are all part of your hurricane preparations. But what about your home insurance? An insurance policy with RF&G Insurance gives you the confidence that your home and possessions are protected when a natural disaster strikes. Include RF&G in your hurricane plans and join the thousands of Belizeans who have learned why it pays to get it right. RF&G Insurance is a Roten company.
If we are only as strong as our families, businesses, institutions, and the communities that surround us, then by giving businesses the power to grow, entrepreneurs the ability to expand, and by giving our families the right to own something, the Belize Bank gives you the power to build a nation, our nation. Stronger together. The Belize Bank. Our country. Your bank.
Do you need to apply for a social security card? With our newest online service, My Social Security, applying for a card just got easier. With a My Social Security account, you can apply for a card anytime and anywhere, putting you in control. To use this service, you must first create your My Social Security account. Visit our website Under Online Services, select My Social Security. Provide your personal information and await activation of your new account. After activation, you are free to log in to your My Social Security account to complete your online application for a Social Security card. Be sure to book your registration appointment to finish the card application process. Gain control and truly experience Social Security at your fingertips.
Why, Tony?
Boy, kid, what you going on, man?
I'm actually going to see you because I need to buy a stack of them plastic plates and cups for my grocery shop because I run low.
Boy, I stopped importing that thing since April 15th, you know. And I just routed the last batch, must be about like 3 weeks back, you know.
Man, do I usually have anything? What is going on?
Check this, right? Under the new law, we ban all single-use plastics, so that the cups, plates, forks, spoons, and knives, all of that. Since April 15th, can't import none of them. Starting January 15, 2021, you can't manufacture them. April 15, 2021, you can't sell them. And after July 14, 2021, if you get catch with any other thing, you will get fined.
Me never know this. I guess I have to make some changes then. I have to make the customers know that anything not available. Anyways, bro. Thanks, man.
No problem, man. Take care.
Hello, Belize. You may not be aware of the new travel requirements set in place by the Center of Disease Control and Prevention. Passengers traveling to the U.S. must present a negative COVID test or a documentation of having recovered from COVID-19 to travel to the U.S. In light of this, Maya, in partnership with Caring Hands Clinic, have established testing centers in all their municipal airports. Caring Hands Antigen Test Center is operational in San Pedro, Belize City, Dangriga, Placencia, and Hopkins. These testing facilities are staffed by licensed healthcare professionals, including doctors, registered nurses, and nurse practitioners. Testing is done using Abbott rapid test devices that are FDA approved and made in the USA. The service is safe, fast, affordable, and the close proximity of the centers makes them convenient. Walk-ins are welcomed, but appointments are encouraged. If you would like to make an appointment, please feel free to do so at make your appointment, get tested, and in 15 minutes, you can get back to your vacation.
Welcome back. We continue our conversation this morning with the leaders of the Joint Union Negotiating Team as we continue to discuss the ongoing situation of the strike and, of course, the resumption of the discussions between the Joint and the Briceño administration. Before we went to the commercial break, we were discussing several points, and I would want for us to be able to continue to look at what happens now in terms of the whistleblowers legislation, in terms of the unjust enrichment legislation and asset recovery. Let's begin with you, Chief Magistrate, to get your position on where we are with respect to those three pieces of law.
As I indicated earlier, we received even before we went back around the table, what resembled the whistleblowers legislation. And we have set deadlines in terms of when we will look at them and return it back to government with our comments as it relates to amendment or possible amendments.
Yeah.
We did get, just after the meeting, the illicit enrichment, asset recovery kind legislation. Little bit more detail. We're hoping, if I could just go back to the whistleblowers, that particular piece of legislation will be tabled in the House by June. So by the time we've gone through it, it goes back to the drafters. The undertaking is that it will go to the House. Hopefully, if the end of June, it will go at least tabled in June. Of course, then it goes through that process.
Yeah.
And then as far as the illicit enrichment, as I said, that is a little bit more involved. We have already received it. We've been asked to do a review and, in fact, return that back to government so it can go back to the drafters. We're looking at July, August in terms of that being tabled. Government didn't have a draft of the campaign financing. We had a draft, and the very day of the meeting, that draft was forwarded to the Attorney General Ministry and the drafters there to look at it to see whether or not they needed to add anything as it relates to that draft. So they will look at it and then they will get back to us in relation to the campaign financing draft bit for our input as it relates to that. So we didn't necessarily set a time limit on that because that would have depended on the Attorney General Ministry.
Yes, since the draft didn't come from them.
Yes.
Yeah.
They promised to give us a feedback from the Attorney General by today as to when more or less she would be able to work with the two documents and come up with a draft.
So from the outside looking in, understanding very clearly that the demands coming from the unions included fast-tracking the passage of some of these legislations. So you went from what was the first timeline of a draft of 3 to 6 months and then implementation to now possible first reading within the next 3 months. So it does seem that we are inching closer to a resolution. Is that fair to say?
I believe so. In terms of the good governance issues, I believe that we are getting there. It seemed to be something from our membership, it seemed to be something that they are amenable to in terms of, say, accepting the timeline, because we have to consider the fact that we have a part to play in it. If it is that we are going to be doing a revision and providing them with some sort of suggested amendments, then we have to do our part as well. So it seemed to be acceptable thus far by our membership.
And I want to be clear that you have at least you have submitted the campaign finance draft to the government, and then they have actually provided to you the Whistleblowers Act and the Illicit Enrichment Act that they would like to move forward on.
Correct.
Okay. Now, that takes care of one aspect of the impasse. We talk about getting the good governance measures in place. And then there are all the other, what would you call them? I suppose they're commitments made to alleviate what would happen if you proceed with, well, when you proceed with the 10% cut. Those include things like land credit, there are talks of promissory notes, there are talk of data packages from BTL to help teachers, especially with online learning. Let's talk about what has been proposed so far and what your positions are on them so far.
Well, there have been a lot placed on the table, Marlene, and
Yes.
as we've said before, some of the matters that were presented did not come with sufficient details for us to be able to say yes or no.
Yes.
So in terms of the land credit, that wasn't something that was our members are favorable, because they are looking at the fact that not everybody has land, not everybody might be able to get land, and so then that would not then assist them in any way. And so there didn't seem to be an acceptance of that proposal. In terms of the matter of credit, for example, and time off for us in particular, we have to then be able to work out with the ministry how that would work. Because I think it's a bit easier for the public officers to say, okay, an hour off each day, and you either go in at 9 or you come out at 4. But for us, it's a bit different, because if we are saying 4 hours or 5 hours for the week, that is more than a half day, and just about a whole day per week.
Yeah.
So those are issues that we have to work with our ministry, because again, we have our education rules that that speaks to other areas that would then.
I was gonna say, isn't this is a proposal that perhaps from the outside looking in just won't work with schools, because you have contact hours to meet as well, and let's be honest, teachers in general, while there are certain number of hours they spend at school, their work goes beyond the time spent at school.
And I think that was a part of the concern as well. That for some, they felt that, well, even if I get 4 hours off, I still have all of this other work to do.
Yeah.
And so that's not any relief for me. Yeah. So, they're not looking at, well, relief from being in the classroom for 4 or 5 hours or for a day, a week or so, as a relief, because they still have to go back and check papers and do lesson plans and all of these things. So there has to be a discussion with our ministry to see how best we can work that out.
Yeah. So those are 3 that you've covered so far: the land credit, the work hours, and then the other things that have been on the table.
Well, the data package for us, we didn't know what that would have entailed. And so we just learned at the last meeting that would be 50% of, I believe we were told for 25, the package is for 25 gigs, and they would get 50% off on that package. So again, while it's something that would assist our teachers because of these online classes that they have been spending out of pocket for, at the time we didn't have any details for us to be able to say yes, we accept, or it's a good offer, or we need a little bit more, that kind of thing. We finally got something last week that we can share with them now.
Okay.
What about you, Mr. Henry? What has been the position of the PSU membership in respect of what is being offered as well?
Okay. Well, for the most part, we share the same sentiments as Sister Elena and the teachers as it relates to the land credit issue, without having to go to what she just said, or repeat what she just said a while ago.
Yeah.
So with regards to the reduction in the work hours for the week, that as she said a while ago, is going to favor a bit more the public officers, because it's an easier thing for that to be implemented in the public service as it relates to the public officers, and not the teachers so much. But that's how things work sometimes when you have these joint negotiations or discussions. That there will be certain things that will favor one party, and then there will be some other things that will favor another party. So, like for example, we were not offered the data packages that is exclusive to teachers.
Okay.
And so, but our public officers, of course, understand that, and so there was pretty much no discussion on that. They were not asking, well, what about us? Are we going to get them data package as well? At least I don't recall, that being the discussion, no?
Yeah.
But they're certainly looking forward to the reduction in the work hours. And Sister Fraser mentioned, I think she said a while ago that during the COVID-19 last year, at least the first phase of it, they actually had an increase in the workload, but productivity did not fall, although we had reduction in work hours back then too. In fact, I believe that she could vouch for the fact that the productivity actually increased. So for those who may have the mentality that because you're working less hours means that automatically the equation is that you will produce less, that is not the case, right? We actually had more productivity from public officers when they were working less hours. So there are a number of reasons for that, but that I don't really have to go into right now. But certainly they are looking forward to a reduction in the work hours, and that is only one thing. But that does not bring the type of relief that that they would want coming from getting a reduction of 10% in their.
And the relief that's being worked out with the financial institutions and allowing for public officers, teachers to be able to access financing through DFC, National Bank. These are things that your membership, what's been the response from that?
Well, Marlene, I want to speak clearly to that because that proposal would hardly benefit my members. The reason for that is that government have said they will dedicate $3 to $5 million to these institutions.
Yes.
If you want to cover a large number of people, it would mean that we're talking about mortgages of maybe nothing more than $50,000 to $75,000. Most of the the persons, the senior managers, would already have a mortgage, and clearly not $50,000 or $75,000. So we would not be able to benefit from that any at all. So that proposal is for the most part no use to us. And I find that when it is that these types of proposals are put forward, that as Brother Henry is saying, some work, you see in the case of the hours, it doesn't work for teachers. Well, in the case of this proposal, it hardly works for us, senior managers, because at the end of the day, even if I even go back to when the National Bank was created, senior managers never profit from that. They never profit because there was a ceiling in terms of the size mortgage that you could have gotten from the National Bank. And at the end of the day, senior managers would have already, a number of them would have already had mortgages that exceeded what was the minimum, the maximum, the ceiling that you could have borrowed from that lending institution. In addition to the moratorium that they would have put in terms of giving us that leniency to not pay our mortgage until December or until January, because that they had proposed that as well.
Yeah.
Talking to the financial institution. Marlene, I will tell you that that is one of those kicking the can down the road. When you have senior managers like myself who are not so far from retirement, the last thing I want to do is prolong any mortgage, because it is hard enough to meet the mortgage when you're getting your full salary rather than getting it, rather than meeting it while you're on a pension, which is far reduced than what you would have gotten. In addition to that, pushing it down would mean you still have to pay interest. So they're not giving you anything. In fact, what it's going to do is to cost you more, because now you still have to pay, and the whole aspect of moving your mortgage from one institution to the next, nobody talks about legal fees and the other associated fees. So they're not doing us a favor in terms of that. I'm not saying it would work for some, you know,
So
in terms of
are there any proposals for the APSSM on the alleviation of the salary cut part that you're open to?
When in fact I pooled members, there were persons who were amenable to the tax credit because obviously they owe taxes. They have land and they could have used that. And initially government had also proposed a credit note. I will tell you, I was very much in favor of the credit note from a personal perspective, because then I could have taken that credit note and go to my mortgage company and say, you know what, I want to put this towards my mortgage, thereby lessening the amount of monthly payment that I would have to make. So there's some that is amenable to our members, right? And like I told you, at that point, that proposal was 50% you get in land tax credit, and 50% in credit note or a promissory note.
Yeah.
But the situation is that even with promissory notes, while it is, we would not have expected the government to pay that right away because we're in a financial
When would it
run.
be redeemable?
Well, all of that wasn't discussed. And while it is, there would have been a new proposal that would have come on the table. The redemption date would have been 3 years from now, if it is that is accepted. The problem is that you have persons who are saying 3 years from now, man, I could starve by then. How am I going to meet my current and present obligation if I have to wait 3 years to get back something that would have been taken from me? So there are pros and there are cons in relation to, and that is why negotiation is never an easy position.
And it's harder when you're working with 3 different entities. So if I could just ask this question here, because what we're shining light on is that basically the membership, the requests coming out from memberships and the needs coming from memberships are different. Is it perhaps a situation where trying to get a one-size-fit-all proposal is going to constantly end in a stalemate? Because as you noted before, data packages work for teachers, lessened hours work for public service union, land credit works for APSSM, but they don't work for the others. So is it perhaps that needs to be an approach that is taken? The whistleblowers separate. Everybody's in agreement in, not whistleblower, good governance measures are separate because all unions are in agreement for that. But when it comes to the other issues, it seems that there aren't solutions that will work for all 3 entities.
But I beg to differ, because in fact, a proposal like a promissory note would work for everyone. What wouldn't work is when it's redeemable. That is where the issue would come in, because with a promissory note, everybody gets paid at some point. The issue is at what point. That is where the problem is. All right?
The commitment also includes the revisiting of the cuts in 6 months or 1 year. Is that also on the table?
Yes, it still is.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's not that. In fact, and we are quite okay with that, because it would mean that every 6 months, and once they have established that committee, that tripartite committee that they would have given an undertaking to, that would also help in reviewing the country's financial situation starting October, and then a following 6 months, so that at the end of the first year, we would be able to assess where we are and whether or not there is a need for any further cut. So that is important. But you're right, Marlene, it's hard to find something that fits everyone.
Yeah. Let me bring it back to Senator Smith and Senator Henry for a moment. You know, I think when we look at the mass group of people who came out on Friday, you know, the numbers, the estimates, I know you guys have shared, it's about 1,000 people who came out, PSU and BNTU, green and yellow shirts. The public reaction, though, has been mixed. You know, I've spoken to union members on both sides who say, when they see me in the green shirt, I get one of two reactions: go back to work, or I'm with you. What's your sense? What are your members saying right now about how important it is to have that public support, and what would you gauge it to be at this point?
Well, for us, Marlene, our teachers have been going out on an educational campaign across the country. And their report has been that feedback has been excellent. Yeah. You know, when they explain to the public what it is that we are doing and why we are standing up, for the most part, people understand and people support the cause that we are doing right now. There are a few who don't want to hear anything from us. You know, the moment they see you is like, you know, we don't want to hear take your cut, that kind of thing. But for the most part, we have had support across this country. We have even had persons who are willing to sign a petition to say that they support us. So while we do have some, and we understand that a lot of the talk has been, for the most part, for persons who are supportive of the present government, and that is understood. But in general, there is a huge support, especially when it comes to the good governance issues. There is a huge support for us and what it is that we are doing right now.
Yeah. And for you, President Henry?
Yes, I have similar experience, Sister Elena. We're not going through the streets and so on. And what I do is whenever I have time, I would stop in, you know, and have discussions with different individuals. I even have certain persons calling me from, you know, the private sector, saying that, you know, they are in full support, especially with regards to the good governance legislations that we want to put in place. And so I think for the most part that we have been getting whatever negative reactions, unfortunately, you know, are from those individuals who look at this as if though it is a political issue, and we keep, and that is one of the reasons why one of our chants that we have, you know, is saying 1, 2. This is not about red or blue. Right? Because this has absolutely nothing to do with politics. It has nothing to do with either political parties. And as a matter of fact, it has to do with both of them combined, right? Because both of them over the years have caused us to be in the position that we are. And hence the reason why we are adamant about getting these good governance legislations put into effect and with some teeth, so that it does not matter who comes into administration, they will have to abide by these various legislations, and we can, as the public, can then hold them to, you know, to whatever the conditions of these legislations will be. So that is one of the reasons why we are, you know, I'm definitely not going to let go of these good governance legislations. And I just want, you know, people to understand that, man, this thing has nothing to do, including our own public officers, because we have some of our own public officers who are, you know, very much partisan, and what they do is that they facilitate abuse and threats to other public officers who are, you know, fighting for the cause now. Yeah. And I really and truly wonder if it is that they will not get that 10% cut themselves, or they have some secret that I don't know of that relieves them when they get that 10% cut, because for the most part, I know most of our public officers, as Sister Fraser mentioned a while ago, are living from hand to mouth. So I don't know what it is that, you know, these administrative officers and so on who are, you know, some of the supervisors who are attacking or threatening our public officers, why is it that they are not fighting for the 10%? It seems they have some thing that is more valuable than 10% for them not to be fighting for.
I want to stick a pin and go back to what you just mentioned there, President Henry, in respect of what seems to be the intimidation of public officers who are participating in this particular action. How have you guys been able to address this issue within the membership, those who work in the various departments?
Well, what we have been doing is that we have been asking those public officers who have been facing those sort of threats of victimization, to report it to us. And in the last meeting that we had with the government side, we brought this up, and the ministers, I'm hoping that they are serious about the commitment that they said that they were going to look into these issues and put a stop to them. But they had mentioned that for those, especially the transfers that they're taking place right now, that we look at them as punitive measures, to threaten and to punish public officers who are taking part in these industrial actions. That they are going to stop these transfers. So I'm hoping that, like I said, they are serious about it. And I want to ask all public officers who are listening right now, who are going to eventually hear this or hear it from their colleagues, to report to the union any activity or any action that they believe, is as a result of their wanting to take part in the industrial action. Even something as simple as wearing yellow shirt has brought some, negative actions against our public officers, just simply because they are wearing a yellow shirt, right? Which is, way past being immature in my mind, no? And so, and that's supported because, like I said, man, this thing doesn't have to do with anything with politics. Unfortunately, it is this administration that is in right now. But we came off, as Sister Fraser always say, we came out of a very abusive relationship before, and right into another one. We can't continue this way.
Yeah.
Well, let me just get one more question in for Senator Smith. Today, May 10th, should have been the second round of opening of schools for face-to-face. Do you know if schools are participating, or are the majority of your teachers on strike?
Well, we have a lot of teachers on strike. One of the things that I just want to share as well, in terms of what Brother Henry said, intimidation comes in various forms. And so we see where during this time of strike, various areas, departments are calling people out to attend workshops. We see ministry giving this to say we are coming in to inspect your schools, knowing that the teachers are on strike. So it comes in different forms. But for now, for those schools who would have been opening today, we know that some of them might still be opening, will still be having that face-to-face, and others would then continue to be on strike. We have seen where, for example, a principal will send a note to parents and say, well, these level teachers, standard 2, standard 3, whatever level, will be at school giving out packages to come for them. When the teachers have clearly said to them, they are on strike. So they are using all of these other ways and means of trying to force the teachers to report to school. The minister has said, several persons have said that we have a right to strike, we have a right to take industrial action. And so if you recognize that right, then why is it that you are still trying to find ways and means of having our teachers and professors not exercise the right that you say that they have, that we know we have? So some may be back at school today, Marlette. For more feedback, we expect that our numbers would remain, and for some even increasing in some districts in terms of those on strike.
Let me just ask generally. If you were to say, from where you were at the point of the budget presentation to where you are today, would you say that we are closer now to a resolution, we as in the country, where the unions and the government are at odds?
Yeah,
That's hard. That's hard to respond to, Marlene. We are better in the sense that we've gone from months of being able to produce draft documents to now getting draft documents. So in that sense, we would have been better. But in terms of property loss, money that has been lost, I don't know that we're anywhere better. In fact, we're worse because now we have lost. It's there, and based on the budget estimation, the cut has been put for 3 years. It's funny because even in our negotiation, where we were saying, our consultation, when in fact we were asked about the cuts, we had indicated that even if it is we were to accept it, clearly it would have only been for a year. Lo and behold, the government has put in that cut for 3 years. They've also put in the increment freeze for up to 2 years when we never agreed to that. So in that aspect, I wouldn't say that we're any closer to resolution. It seems that decisions have been made and it is being forced upon us. It is never good for relationship, employer-employee relationship, to enter into anything where there at least not some effort of meeting a middle ground. In our case, I feel, and I've said that to the ministers, I feel that we were set up from the beginning, because if it is they knew that they were going to pull out a piece of legislation and use that against us, then maybe it is that needed to have been told to us from day one, rather than having us go there saying certain things, making certain recommendations, only to be ignored, and government then making this unilateral position. As I've said before, it is not that the legislation does not exist. It's not that the minister don't have the right under the Constitution. So I've made that clear. What I think we would have liked was at least to know that that is where they were going from the beginning, and then we would have been, I guess, putting the message to our members differently.
So
maybe
just so we can round it off. So in summary, you feel that there's some strides that have been made, but you wouldn't say that we're much closer to a resolution. Senator Smith and President Henry, do you share the same perspective?
I think I can agree. In terms of the cut, Marlene, we have raised the matter with them because the budget, it shows projections for 2-3 years down the road. And so we are aware that in that budget, those projected figures are shown. And what they have said to us is that we've agreed with you all that it's going to be on a yearly basis and we do a revision. But because the budget has projections for 2-3 years down the road, then you would see that there. But if it is that at the end of the year, we're okay and we don't need to continue with the cut or might not need that amount, then we will certainly do that. So it has, while we understand the projection in the budget, it has still put us in a position where, it comes across sometimes to our members as if though we're not being truthful with them, and then it creates more issues for us. So in terms of the other areas we have made headway, significant headway. In terms of the cut, we will see what it is that they will, if our members are to accept the last proposals that they gave us, then we will see what happens when we meet again on Thursday.
Yeah. All right. Last words, President Henry?
Yes, I think I share, of course, both my sister's sentiments with regards to those. And just to go back a little bit to what Sister Fraser mentioned a while ago in terms of the fact that salary cut is immediate, and we would want to try to find, some relief that would be, at least in a short term, as opposed to having to wait an entire 3 years to redeem credit. It goes back to, I recall an article that I read some years ago about some country in Africa or some state in Africa where a relief, one of these organizations that provide, food relief and so on, presented the municipality there in Africa with several tons of grain in order for them to plant, and they prepared the ground and everything for them, and provided them with tons of grain to plant. And when the organization representatives went back to the country, to that municipality, a few months later or a year later, to evaluate the progress of the project, right? Because they were supposed to plant those grains. They found that the ground was almost exactly the same way that they left it. There wasn't a single plant in the ground. And so they asked the people there, well, what happened? Did the grains fail? Was there a drought? Was there anything like that? And the people said, no, nothing like that. We just needed to eat now, right? They couldn't wait for whenever the time that the plants were going to grow and produce. Yeah. So they ate what was there, So that is where I think that the issue of my suggestions, because I can tell you the experience that I had with the just a minute, let this truck pass. Yeah. Yeah, when I was getting the workers' bus, right? The ones from Dangriga and the one from Belize City. The regular bus fare from Dangriga is $7, right? And the workers' bus is charging them $5. That means that public officers are saving $80 every month, right? And that's a relatively significant amount of money when you look at it. Now, if it is that the government, can subsidize the bus, as was already brought up in our discussions, and public officers could maybe pay down to $2, to commute to work, because as Sister Fraser had said, some of them had broken down their 10% already. And I know some of them have told me, Brother Henry, this 10% is pretty much my entire commuting budget. So what will happen then is that more than likely some days I will not be able to go into work, right? But if the government can subsidize and it's only 2 buses right now, where, there's one from Cayo, because there is also some workers coming from San Ignacio. So, but that's not a dedicated or a priority workers bus. I hope that I could turn that into one, and it will only be 3 buses to subsidize, and that will bring significant savings. So it's not an issue that we could have one pill that will solve everything. Yeah. But if you implement a lot of little different things, we could very well achieve, that everyone would be satisfied at the end of the day.
So the cabinet should hear some of those proposals tomorrow, and the joint unions return to the table with government on Thursday. That's the case.
Right.
Yes, it is. Yes.
All right.
But Marlene, I just want to say, because I noticed that people talk about, as my one last thing, people talk about the joint unions, and they make just reference to PSU and BNTU. But there are members of APSSM that are playing some very significant role in all of these negotiations, and in fact offering the support to PSU members. So at least I want to give that acknowledgement to those members. They've come off the fence, and they're, in fact, while it is very small in numbers, and clearly you would very well not be able to see shirts, because we're working on that. But even if it is, you would have been able to. We're small in numbers, small but significant. So at least I want to say that, and I want to give thanks to those members of APSSM who are playing their role and doing what they need to do to ensure that this process works and continue supporting the actions of the joint unions. Thank you.
Yeah.
And
I just want to quickly follow up with that. Just one quick thing, if I may. Yeah, I just want to acknowledge as well the representatives that we also have around the table from the NTUCB, who have also been, playing some very critical roles with regards to, the entire issues that we have been facing. And I just wanted to acknowledge them as well. Thanks.
All right. Well, we thank you for keeping us updated as to how things are going. This is a critical issue for all of us, being able to have a resolution between both the unions and the government. Thank you so much for the update, and of course, continue to stay safe.
Thank you, too.
Thank you, Marlene. Right. Just a reminder, this week is Education Week and Friday is Teachers Day. Yeah. So we salute our teachers this week.
So an even bigger celebration on Friday.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and take a break, and we'll be back in a few. Please stay tuned.
This COVID update was brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
My name is Gerald Jones, a member of the Belize Police Department, and I believe that violence is never acceptable or excusable. We must make an effort to stop it. There is no excuses to violence.
Real men do not abuse women, girls, and children under any circumstances. Men have to set example for boys to renounce any form of violence against women and girls and put a stop to it. Our women are partners in creating a safe space for our children and their children. As men, it is our responsibility to end violence and abuse towards women. Less violence and more love.
Gender-based violence is not just a woman's issue. It is a human rights issue. Women and children should not feel unsafe in their own homes where they should feel the safest. Let us fight against all forms of violence.
I believe that no society can fully develop while marginalizing women. Development can only be successful when it is inclusive and equitable for all. The relationship between women and men must be built on equal power, real partnership, and mutual respect. If people work together, we can bring an end to gender-based violence.
I will play a role in creating a cultural and social shift that no longer tolerates violence against women, girls, boys, and other men. We all have responsibility, so I will challenge my friends, family, neighbors, and my co-workers to end gender-based violence.
Smart continues to expand its internet coverage countrywide to help you live a smarter life.
Our villagers are very happy. They are pleased to know that Smart went the extra mile to put a tower in our village so that our villagers can get live stream on their TVs and they can get their kids doing their online classes. I want to say to Smart, thank you for making it possible for us to get internet in Gardenia Village. We really do appreciate it.
Smart continues to take the internet and mobile services to communities across Belize. Now save even more when you bundle your Smart broadband with Smart mobile services. Smart, bringing people together.
If we are only as strong as our families, businesses, institutions, and the communities that surround us, then by giving businesses the power to grow, entrepreneurs the ability to expand, and by giving our families the right to own something, the Belize Bank gives you the power to build a nation, our nation. together. The Belize Bank, our country, your bank.
Dwayne Moody, Isani Cayetano, Andrea Polanco, Paul Lopez. Your News 5 Belize teams do whatever it takes, go wherever they need to go, so you can catch the story wherever you are, whenever you want, on whatever device. Channel 5 Belize on television, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, because news is now everywhere, all the time. And so are we.
2020 taught us the importance of being connected to the virtual world, and NextGen is here to keep its commitment to you. Even if you're physically apart, NextGen keeps you digitally connected.
Okay everyone, thank you for following me today.
NextGen provides more than just an internet plan. They provide service plans that support all your online needs. Sign up today and get your NextGen's ultra high-speed internet service. NextGen, powered by Central TV and Internet.
Continues to expand its internet coverage countrywide to help you live a smarter life.
Our villagers are very happy. They are pleased to know that Smart went the extra mile to put a tower in our village so that our villagers can get live stream on their TVs and they can get their kids doing their online classes. I want to say to Smart, thank you for making it possible for us to get internet in Gardenia Village. We really do appreciate it.
Smart continues to take the internet and mobile services to communities across Belize. Now save even more when you bundle your smart broadband with smart mobile services. Smart, bringing people together.
And we're back. And we had a very extended show today, extended conversation with the representatives of the Association of Public Service Senior Managers, Public Service Union, and Belize National Teachers Union. As we know, the strike continues today's day 11 for the teachers, and that means that after today, it will be the longest teacher strike on record. And the current proposals are being presented to membership. The cabinet should meet tomorrow and discuss some of the proposals being put forward. And then the government and the unions come back to the table on Thursday once again. You know, what is necessary is a resolution to this issue. And so it is critical that we're able to hear from the unions exactly how things have been going with them. The leaders present the information to the membership decide whether or not this is sufficient for them to return back to work.
Quite an interesting conversation indeed, Marlene, in terms of some of the points that were being made by the representatives of the joint unions negotiating team. It will be a wait and see for Thursday in terms of the outcome of that meeting with the government to see if there's any progress that has been made in terms of what is agreed upon and what have you.
All right, but of course we'll continue to keep you posted. You can find out more in our newscast tonight at 6 p.m. right here on Channel 5. But we got to wrap up the show for today. Remember, if you'd like to get in touch with us, you can send us an email at oye@channel5belize.com. You can also find us on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ and on Instagram at OYEBelize. Remember to tune in tomorrow morning at 6:30 when you open your eyes
to start your morning right.
Until then, keep your eyes, your mind,
and your hearts open.
We'll see you soon. Enjoy your day, Belize.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.